Welcome to the deep dive for October. We are discussing lessons learned from the hurricane response. I'm going to go through some slides of stuff that we have pulled out that we thought was important, and then I'm going to ask you guys to add to that. What things have you learned from, if you've been watching the response, what things have you learned? What surprised you? What delighted you? Um, and then we'll just get all that recorded and save it for posterity. So this kind of kicked it off. Hopefully, you all received the email from Melissa Pico. She's in University Heights. This was posted on the door of some kind of co-op. I don't, or no, I'm sorry, it was a bookstore. Um, Somebody randomly did this and said, "Hey, let's get together." 12 to 4 every single day. Please don't leave donations outside of this time frame. Community meetings daily at 2. Um, and then they'll have a community board, that kind of thing. So that was the first thing that caught my attention. And this is kind of the fallout from that. So about 40 people attended that first meeting. So obviously it was posted in a really good spot because 40 people just walking by randomly got the message and showed up the next day. And then the following day, 400 people. So it worked really well, really fast. This is their comments. The gatherings, now a daily anchor, have generated a multitude of connections and volunteer powered projects. Before city officials had finished assessing the damage, community members were sharing supplies, doing wellness checks, and serving hot meals. Over the next few days, things became more organized. So, to me, that just says everything we do as hubs is directly on track with what the community will do, even if we're not there. We just help them get a head start. So, this is how I can't remember if this is shared information or matched resources. This is the Firestorm Co-op bookstore. This is another caption from their Facebook page or something. This is just them gathering in that back parking lot, figuring out how to help one another, fixing generators. I don't know, all kinds of stuff going on there. And then thanks to FOC, he captured a lot of the ham radio traffic that he could listen to. These are just a few things. Welfare checks were big part of the communication happening over ham radio. For those of you that don't know, welfare checks are just letting people outside of the impacted area know that the loved ones inside the impacted area are doing okay. So it's really just trying to lower everybody's stress level by spreading information about who survived the disaster. Um, I thought this was interesting. The first FEMA truck of water arrived at 2:30 in the morning, so 2:30 a.m. They won't be distributing it until about 2 p.m. because they have to get staff and all kinds of stuff, and they're only giving out 3 gallons per person. So I thought that was really interesting. Somebody has near that area has a mule ranch. He was put together a mule train to
Wow.
help get supplies into the area. Just interesting stuff. I thought this was pretty impactful. This is what happens when you let people drop off donations. This was multiple days after the hurricanes had passed, and I saw lots of posts about um, getting rid of all these donated items, and they were going well beyond people that were impacted by the hurricanes. They were inviting entire communities to just come and take it because they had gotten so overwhelmed so quickly. So donations are an issue. um, I saw this somewhere. FEMA put out request for residential properties to lease for Helene survivors. Thought that was kind of cool. I didn't realize that FEMA got involved in that, but I guess it makes sense. I don't know how well they pay, but if you have rental property that you would like to offer to the cause, they were looking for it. Uh, Thought this was fun. Somebody offered a Pilates class. or I guess it's more of a yoga relaxation kind of class to help people de-stress. I think that's a genius idea. Another thing that surprised me, disaster supplemental nutrition assistance program. So SNAP is the food stamp program here in the US, and I guess there's such a thing as DSNAP. So who knew? They are, I guess they're applying straight to the regular SNAP people. It's just called a little bit, it's just got a different name. And I'm assuming the eligibility is very different. Yeah, you got to live in these counties. You have to have suffered losses. So kind of nice that that kicks in, that there is such a thing, and that it kicked in this case. Oh, this is one of those donation things. Volunteers needed to help sort donations. An incredible amount of clothing, pet supplies, diapers, formula, you name it, has been donated. Um, There's so much to share that anyone can come and take what you want. And this was a request for people to box it up and make some sense out of it. People had put in requests for specific items. And so the volunteers were packing that up so that families could come pick it up. Chainsaw safety course. Thought that was kind of interesting. The top of this ad, and I think I grabbed this off of Facebook, the top of this said, "This might come in handy." So, yeah, that made a lot of sense. You've got people handling tools that maybe they've never picked up before. This was Starlink. Starlink was giving out free service for 30 days in the Hurricane Helene damage path. All you have to do is enter your address in the following website and bang. I don't know. So, obviously, huge area. Starlink was giving out free service for 30 days if you had that device, if you had a Starlink device, but didn't yet have a subscription. Um, oh, sorry, I should have put this next to the other one. Um, no more clothes, please. We appreciate the kindness, but not a lot of us have lost their clothes. And sadly, most of us who did don't have homes or any place to put them. So, what they found really useful was dehumidifiers, damp rid, which is kind of the same thing. It's just a chemical that absorbs water to get it out of the air. Propane, heaters, because it was getting cold. Um, Buddy heater with burner combos. So I guess you can heat your space and have a cooking surface. And then plugs and wires for connecting generators to homes. Those were found really useful. This is another thing I pulled off of Facebook. I thought she was a pretty good writer. She was checking in daily on Facebook. She had power but no water. Things are about the same here, power, no water. Magical dehumidifiers are still creating flushable water out of thin air. Um, that will never cease to amaze me. I got even less sleep last night than I have over the last week because sometimes 2-year-olds have rough nights, and the power being out for so long has really ramped up his fear of the dark at nighttime. Didn't think about that. This is it is a Google product. It's called People Finder. It is a large database that looks like a spreadsheet. It really is just a spreadsheet. It kicks in areas where people could be missing. I was going to take a snapshot of the spreadsheet, but it's got names and all kinds of information on there. So there's two different websites. You go to one to input somebody that you're looking for, and one to mark if you're safe. I forget exactly how it works, but um, the reunification committee looked at this. So this exists obviously when there's power and when Google has turned it on. The struggle we have as hubs is, how do we collect information so that maybe we could um, feed electronically feed our handwritten information into this database once we got power. So that's kind of where the reunification committee stopped working was we couldn't really um, couldn't really figure out how to get past that. But honestly, this Hurricane Helene, the emphasis on welfare checks has encouraged me at least to pull this committee back together and see if we can't figure out a good solution.
Question, Anne.
Yeah.
So you were able to get in and see that there was a spreadsheet that was going?
Yes.
And
Yes. I
so
will.
anybody could look at it and look for their loved one there?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. And yeah, I won't go into it, but yeah, super, super loaded really fast. It was fabulous. Okay. Oh, okay. So here's my summary. Ham radio saved lives. Absolutely. They used it for so many things to to tell the officials where help was needed, to the welfare checks. I mentioned that already. To coordinate donations. I can't even. The list just goes on and on. Ham radio people were really important. See, I'm going to stop for just a second and share a video that I came across that I thought was really good. Figure out how I do this. All right, I'm going to apologize now for you seeing all of my screen. All right.
Please somebody speak up if you cannot hear this.
Just very impressive. That's amazing. Great job. And to get in front of any confusion, this is an emergency situation, and that means you can use your radio if it means protecting your life or the life of another person. And these are situations where people are still dying. The death toll is going up. Sadly, during the net that I was listening to at 7 p.m. on the North Carolina repeater with K2DMG as the net control, they changed from a posture of rescue to that of recovery, which that's sad news. That means that they think at this point a lot of the people have passed that were going to pass, and they're now in the process of pulling lifeless people out of homes and structures or wherever they're found. That's the type of damage that happened here. Another thank you that came out for net control K2DMG has been rocking it. He explicitly said on the air the other day, I don't care if you have a license or not. If you need help, key up and we'll get you help. Paraphrased, and that's the right thing to do. Life safely takes precedence over FCC rules. By the way, that's not a precedence over FCC rules. The FCC clearly states that. So this is a just time that if you had a radio in your capacity and you had a capacity to use it being one of the most important things. If you have a call sign, great. If not, get your need out and don't clog up the net. To those of you who have been involved with the net or recovery efforts at all, I applaud all of you. I feel like we owe K2DMG a beer. That man should get taken care of for life if he needs beer, and all this volunteering he's done. I was listening to the disaster recovery net in Charlotte, North Carolina on the W4HTP repeater. Today, first, hats off to the net control for doing a great job for so many hours and the hams that participated. It seemed to be really well run and a fair amount of important traffic was handled. It was interesting to hear an unlicensed operator and how smoothly it went. I suppose under these conditions, it would be a bona fide emergency and the unlicensed operator forgiven. There was a guy who was calling into the repeater from a local VFW, Veteran of Foreign Wars, post or other fraternal organization. He was trying to contact a specific person at the National Guard in hopes of getting a water truck. That's bad when there's no clean water, right? Potentially in some of these communities. It takes out a ton of your local systems. The message was repeated and passed along. When the net control asked for a call sign, the guy admitted he didn't have one. The net control didn't really say anything, and other than a phone call to the fellow in question, he says his message was relayed. Nothing else was heard of it. I don't know what the status of phones and internet was for the unlicensed operator, but admittedly, he handled himself well and didn't disturb the net. I was a little surprised the net control let it pass, but this was a terrible storm, and under the circumstances, there is no reason to get salty. Who knows, maybe the guy will get a ticket. I hope so. Now, there have been no shortage of YouTube videos of local news and different organizations putting out videos of how how amateur radio is being used in the case of the disaster, particularly in North Carolina. North Carolina was extremely battered from Helene. I want to leave you with this small clippet of the net control down at W4HTP, which was the repeater I mentioned earlier. And they've been on the air since the beginning. They've been working this since the beginning. They've been trying to coordinate. And I think it's really wise words from a person who's now been through it, is living this, is still doing the net some 5 days plus when this all went down.
Not hearing anything.
All right. So I stopped the video. I heard Cindy say you couldn't hear it anymore for some reason. He was talking about what happens to the body on day 5 without food or water. Ham radio saved lives. Donations quickly overwhelmed the spots where they were donated. Neighbors are the key to surviving a disaster, and welfare checks are a big deal. They took up a lot of time and energy, and it was important. I'm going to stop talking now, and I would like to hear from you guys. Was there anything you saw that surprised you in the response?
I have some thoughts, not on this, what we just saw, but we discussed this at our hub meeting last night. And one of the women had lived through the earlier New Orleans hurricane and also 9/11. And she said the responses really followed a pattern. The first people were in shock and they were desperate to find their loved ones. And the telephones didn't work, nothing worked. So it was really chaos. And then she said that after they were found where people were, then they started assessing what was going in on the damage to their house and their neighbor's house, and the neighbors really did pull together, but the looting also started. So she said what I think these hubs have been saying for a long time: you really are on your own. And just as I think would happen in Seattle, the government's trying its best at fastest, but they're looking at hospitals and schools and things like this first. But it was interesting.
Absolutely.
The other thing she said is on the welfare checks, she said, you know, if your electricity's out, your ATMs don't work. So I wonder how they cash those welfare checks.
Good question.
Wait.
I think we're talking
Claire,
about two
yeah,
different.
2 different topics.
Yeah,
Clarify.
Yeah, welfare check is when you send somebody in
Oh,
check on a person at risk.
Okay.
You call 911.
I didn't get that.
The welfare check. No, not the other kinds of checks. Yeah.
Okay.
Kathy brought up something that I saw only once about the looting, and it was, first of all, it was somebody reported looting, and it turns out it was somebody doing a welfare check. So they entered a home looking for someone who hadn't answered the door. Um, and then the other thing I saw was that the little bit of looting they did see was against businesses. Folks were breaking into businesses to get whatever. It wasn't breaking into homes. So,
And that's exactly what she said. I should have elaborated on that. And we had gone down 10 years ago at the Rainier Hub and talked to the businesses in our area to find out what their plans are. And some of them had plans, some didn't, but most of them said they were going to run home and check on their family. But she said in both cases, the stores, when the heating's gone out or the refrigeration's gone off, there comes a time where they're perfectly happy distributing everything to anybody. And so I think it's worthwhile keeping in contact with them so that they know the people from the hub that could be able to get food and stuff from them.
Yeah, good point, Kathy. We talk about that a lot. This big barbecue on day 3 or day 4 when everybody's fridges and freezers are kaput. Yeah, we'll definitely be in the business of helping distribute food.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, I wanted to say I had kind of a different experience. So I actually was flew into Atlanta for a conference on the Thursday as the hurricane was approaching. I was like, ah, it's not going to work. As you know, um, it was um, it was rainy, but certainly as a Seattleite, nothing that it didn't strike me as exceptionally rainy. And where I was, the next day they were like the hotel was like, we have flashlights we can give you, and if we need to evacuate, we're all going to gather in the ballroom. We're on the 16th floor, so I wasn't super worried. And like, please close your drapes just in case. So I mean, they were really like, they had it all pulled together, but I heard nothing, slept soundly, woke up in the morning, it was gorgeous. And so it really gave me just an entirely different perspective on the like, why don't people leave when they're told, oh, you really ought to leave? Uh, on a break, I walked through the neighborhood and there was nothing. There were places where it looked like, wow, that looks like a place that would flood, just a lower area in people's yard, completely empty of water. And so that was just really striking to me, how, specifically with a hurricane, it hit some places and then other places that seem like they're in the path completely untouched. So that was just really striking to me.
Nice. Thanks, Ellen. Nancy put a question in chat about what we can do about downed power lines. To my knowledge, there is nothing we can do to fix the problem. All we can do is cordon off the area so nobody stumbles across it and accidentally gets electrocuted. We don't have a way of testing to see if they're live or not. I don't think that's a business where I doubt we're ever going to get in. I don't know.
There is a
Anybody?
tool that you can use that will tell whether um whether a wire is live. That I live in an old house, and when we bought it there was yeah, but it's not something that we're gonna ever want to do.
Yeah, and Ellen, there's a big difference between the electricity that's running through your
Oh,
home
right.
and
Yeah,
a
yeah.
downed power line. Like you're not
Right.
even supposed to get within, I don't
25
know,
feet. 25
25
feet.
feet. So we can't even get close enough to test.
Yes. Yeah.
We could, maybe throw a chair on it or something and see what happens, but I don't know that I'd even recommend that.
No.
Other thoughts or
Rita
things you,
put something in the chat also.
oh yeah. Yeah, I see that, Rita. Thanks. Yeah. um, just FYI, the Ballard hubs have a grant, had a grant. We just wrapped it up. And one of the things one of the hub captains came up with was a sign, and it's two-sided. It's one of those yard signs. The one side says, we do not accept donations at this site, or maybe it's just we don't accept donations. And on the other side is hours of operation. And the reason she came up with this idea, this was Jody in Ballard Commons, she came up with this idea because she believes our hub volunteers are going to be, that's something they will have to repeat a lot. So again, one side is we don't accept donations. The other side is these are our hours of operation. And, basically it's probably going to say sunrise to sunset, but still, um, uh, anyway, I thought it was a really good idea. I'll figure out a place to put that sign in the Google Drive if anybody wants to duplicate it. I don't know how much they are. They're probably like $20 a sign or something like that. But anyway, so yeah, good that we already realized donations are an issue, and we gear up our volunteers to not accept donations. Thanks, Rita.
This is Cindy. One of the things that I caught a lot of was the stress that happened to all the people who were responding. And so there's been a request, from the right after COVID, are we ever going to get back to psychological first aid for first responders? And we have that course that was developed for kind of that hub role. And so I really think that this year in 2025, we should definitely get that on the once or twice if we can actually find an instructor to do it, so that everybody gets refreshed about how serious the work is and how hard and draining the work is. And if you go into it knowing that, you stand less of a chance of being impacted yourself. So that was kind of my big takeaway.
The other thing I saw in a couple places, I think, was how much like comfort items meant to them. And it kind of to Cindy's point about the psychological stress on the not necessarily the responders, but the victims, I guess. Um, and when they say like comfort stuff, it was juice. That was a big deal, as opposed to just straight water. Um, one of the parents said, "Oh my God, I wish I would have I wish I would have downloaded more movies or some kind of entertainment for my kids because, you know, she's completely overwhelmed with all she's got to do, and her kids are just underfoot." So I thought that was pretty smart. Yeah.
I agree, and I remember I just pulled it up in my email, the email that Cindy had sent out from Dave Wilma, and I think that was one of the spots where they talked about just having flavored seltzer and how nice that was. And so that really struck me too, that it was just those little things that they liked. And I had something I had seen online. I'm sure you've all heard about the Waffle House Index, and it was just talking about again how the Waffle House is always prepared, and they connect with FEMA as well as some other businesses around. They're a way to talk about the level of damage in a community, and that FEMA can use that based on how many Waffle Houses are working or not. So I had read a little blurb about that. I thought that was really interesting.
Does everybody know what Gabrielle's talking about, the Waffle House Index?
No.
Gabrielle, can you explain it a little bit more?
Well, it's just 2 paragraphs. Why don't I read it? It's on one of the websites I went to. It says the Waffle House is a restaurant based in Georgia, which has been recognized by FEMA for its exceptional preparedness during hurricanes, ready to serve customers and responders. Their preparedness is effective and reliable enough that they, along with other companies, are used by FEMA as an informal metric called the Waffle House Index to determine how badly a storm had affected an area. And they said because of their level of preparedness, they are able to serve as a place for residents to charge their phones and provide food to first responders in the aftermath of a storm. So that's all I read. I had taken a picture of it on my phone.
Nice.
You might know more about it, Anne.
No, that's pretty much what I read.
What Ron remembers is if you're in a disaster area and there's no Waffle Houses that have returned to operations, it's really bad.
I wonder what kind of training they do.
Yeah.
Anne or Cindy, can you talk a little bit about the interaction with FEMA and the volunteers? Anything that you know about North Carolina?
Yeah, generally, FEMA and the response agencies are very hierarchical, and it depends on how your state is organized. But basically, a city is expected to respond to the ability that it can. And if it's overwhelmed, then it goes up to its county or parish or next larger. And if they're also overwhelmed, it escalates to the state. And if the state is overwhelmed, and it can't execute its memo of agreements with nearby states or other partners, corporate level partners, then FEMA is called in. And FEMA also has to wait until the president declares a disaster and says, okay, now you can go in. So with all those levels, there is very seldom a place where FEMA is working directly with like a city. For example, FEMA is going to work with at the state, and the state is then trying to satisfy all the counties under it and all the cities under it. Where the interaction happens is when FEMA sends out its and I forget what the program is, disaster relief program, which is where people can apply for immediate cash to, find a place to stay, and then they can start applying for their restitution money that's available through FEMA. Then there's face-to-face discussions between citizens and the volunteer organizations trying to help the citizens to get them the paperwork process that they need to do. And the other thing that FEMA does directly is often they will come in and they will set up like a phone bank or a communications area so that people can use those tools. But FEMA is not out in every city, working individually with each city. It works up at the state level to assess all the counties and all the impacted cities.
I had a question. When somebody said back in your slideshow and the first FEMA truck arrived with water, I hadn't had any opportunity to listen to all this stuff the last few weeks. So I'm wondering how late into the incident, how late after the hurricane hit did the first FEMA truck arrive? Do we know?
Well, I can tell
don't
that one I know.
Okay.
Because they were so pissed. I was actually listening to that one live. They came, the ham radio net control operator came back from a briefing at the county EOC that he was sitting in at. And he said that the county manager had requested FEMA start delivering water 3 days before the hurricane hit. So, they were escalating their requests up to state and FEMA to get the water in. That water didn't come in until Saturday night. So landfall was Friday. It came in Saturday morning and it didn't get distributed until Saturday afternoon. So they were mad because it hadn't arrived early like they requested, and then it took, almost 2 full days for it to get in the hands of the citizens afterwards. So you've used up 2 of your 3 days that you can live without water at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And in some places, that was the very first place I heard that was getting water. In some places, they weren't getting water until the next day, and people were being restricted to 1 gallon. And in and it was really weird. In one place, they said you get 3 liters of water, which makes it sound like you get your 3 per day. Well, 3 liters is just about a gallon. So it was very, very bizarre. But it was very little water being rationed out, let me tell you. And you had to bring your own container. So if you just lost everything, now you got to go find a clean bucket to carry it home in.
I have a couple more slides. I just put these together. And more stuff, and I just didn't get it on my slideshow. All right. So, this one I thought was weird. So, folks working the disaster, linemen and rescuers say there are lots of yellow jackets. So, the buzzing around, sting you things. They're asking for chewable Benadryl. Who knew? This one was from I think it was like a home business that does no, I'm sorry. It was an animal control, animal shelter kind of thing. We are in crisis. So many stray dogs coming in. No one's looking for them. We have no room to put them. We need help. Our staff is beyond stressed. The dogs are everywhere. Without help, we will have to euthanize for space. Oh, I can see that being an issue, not necessarily for the hubs, but for any kind of animal shelter kind of place.
That is one of the problem areas, because we've talked to Seattle Animal Shelter, and they know they're going to be overwhelmed if there's lots of stray animals. There are partner organizations, for example, Best Friends out of Utah, but they have to be requested in. So somebody has to escalate the demand up that says we need help with the stray animals, and there are multiple organizations, but that delay, because it's not, you know, human life safety, often gets put down to the bottom of the list. So it'll take up to a week before some of those organizations are given the okay to come in and start helping with taking the strays and shipping them out. So it, you know, having in the hubs, we kind of use the scenario of take as many, you know, people take animals home just to keep them off the streets and keep them from getting hurt or, you know, becoming a danger, and just keep them safe for a couple of days until we can either reunite them or find an organization to hand them off to.
Excellent. I am going to put a link to the People Finder database in the chat if you want to take a look at that. And then I've got a couple more slides. So this is from somebody that talked about what they wish they had done better, their prep. So obviously they live in hurricane country, they do this all the time. But the biggest and best prep we did, which I will now never live without, is to get a ham radio and extra batteries. Emergency response for first responders, tips about gas, groceries. The importance of this connection for our mental health and peace of mind cannot be overstated. Same person. I wish I'd gotten out some cash. Last time grocery store internet went down in our area, they just shut down the store and wouldn't sell us anything. I figured they'd just stay out of commission until power's back. We didn't anticipate how long it would take the power to come back. They are selling groceries now if you have cash. Luckily, we have some on hand. I just wish it was more. I will probably add $100 in $1 bills to my sick drawer for next time. So cash is king. I want to buy a power bank for my phone. We're using a ton of battery to access limited cell signal, and access to the outside world is really keeping us sane. I read somewhere that if your cell phone service is spotty, it really uses your battery. It's a bigger pull on your battery. So you're gonna need more battery than just normal. I think that's true. If anybody knows different, please yell.
Nope, that's correct, because it's spending a lot of energy searching for signal.
Okay, makes sense. So this is the one. I wish I had more soda water and juice. Soda water, huh? Great for morale. I wish I had downloaded more videos. This was one, oh my gosh. I also have been meaning to take a full house video tour of every room, drawer, and cabinet for insurance purposes. Fortunately, we didn't need this, but plenty of folks who do in our area don't have one. When power's back, this will be a priority for just in case. And I'm sorry, this is a repeat of the cash one. So video tour. I would encourage everybody on this call to do one. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be fabulous. Hopefully you'll never need it. Just walk through your house and talk. Put something, get something in a recording and throw it onto the cloud so it's there if you ever need it. We went through this already. Any last minute, any other comments folks have? Sorry, I just now put that People Finder in the chat. I was hoping Ed Falk would be able to join us. He was pretty instrumental in listening to the radio traffic. Oh, and I want to point out Frank Lawler is an AI guru, apparently. He ran group chat, I don't know, Snapchat, I don't know what the chat thing is, but pulled together a whole lot of information from the hurricane response using AI, and his co-captain Steve forwarded that to me, and so I read through that, and that's where a lot of this information came from. Very smart.
One interesting thing I had to add is that we were in Kentucky when this hit, and we were heading towards Tennessee, one county over from where the hurricanes hit in southeast Tennessee. And so we were in Knoxville area. We happened to need to go get some gallons of water. You could not buy gallons of water in the Knoxville area. All the potable water was being pulled out of all the nearby cities nearby and shipped into the disaster zone, which was really cool. And I saw a lot of signs up saying, you know, we're collecting donations here. Here's your drop-off point. We went to a museum and the whole lobby was filled with donated stuff that they were going to pack up into a van and take out to people. So I know, you know, it's that, you know, pros and cons, you know, everybody wants to give, and people were saying, we'll collect it and we'll get it there. And I'm sure they'll know what to do with it when it gets there. Yeah, I saw pictures where they were looking inside like a grocery bag, and they just had they had like 5 things in their hand that they pulled out, and they were looking in it with this look of, what is all this crap in here?
Totally get that. Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts about the hurricane response? Okay. I hope you guys feel as, I don't know, encouraged as I do that everything we're doing with the hubs is dead on. We are so on track.
And I have one additional topic to slide in,
Okay.
just as a heads up for everybody. So we talked about this at the last Hub Captains meeting, that the budget cycle has started. The mayor had proposed cutting budget in the Department of Office of Emergency Management. Specifically, it turns out, in eliminating one of the community engagement positions. So taking it down from 2 people or 3 people down to 2. So I will be sending out to the hub captains my personal letter, because, you know, we don't typically write as organizations letter, but my personal letter to the Public Safety Committee of the City Council to say, we have a total of 14 emergency managers supporting the entire 755,000 people in Seattle. Portland has 23, and we're proposing to even cut that budget. So you guys need to take a really strong look at what happens in neighborhoods that aren't prepared, and with our diversity, what that result is going to be, and possibly, you know, think about the future and not be short-sighted by cutting the staffing to the Office of Emergency Management. I'm not super talented at writing those letters, and especially not when I'm on vacation, but if I send that out to everybody, and if you see points in there you'd like to, you know, build on for your own neighborhood, or, you know, some experience you've had where you'd like to have had more support from the Office of Emergency Management but couldn't get it because they were already booked up, please feel free to write your council member to, and the window's getting pretty short. The public hearing on this is going to be November 12th. So if anybody wants to write letters to their council member, please do so, because otherwise it's going to get cut, and it's going to be even harder to get them to help us do the outreach efforts we think are so important.
Thanks, Cindy. I'll include your draft letter in with the recording and everything from this meeting.
Yeah. Let me send you the redraft, because San Francisco answered me today, so I have their
Okay.
numbers now. Okay.
Excellent. Okay. All right, just a couple more announcements. This is something that's been out and about for a bit. Sorry. Gina, I think, sent this out. Gina from the Brayburn Hub. Are you interested in brainstorming about how bicycles and or other micromobility modes might be used to support communities during a disaster? If you answered yes, they'd like you to sit in on a focus group. You got to be over 18, you get $50. Here's the dates for the focus groups. Tuesdays is coming up really quick, and then Wednesday, October 30th, and Saturday, November 2nd. So I will put this in the links as well. If anybody's interested in going, this research group is being sponsored by a huge supporter of the hubs, Katie. So yeah, she's working on her, well, she's a doctor. I was going to say she's working on her doctorate, but anyway, it'd be nice to support her. She's doing good work, really pushing the boundaries of community preparedness. And then this is just a recap of upcoming events. So as usual, Monday night GMRS radio check-ins at 8 o'clock. November 2nd, Crown Hill is hosting a Stop the Bleed class. Please don't put this out to your communities, but if you have volunteers, hub volunteers, your steady hub volunteers that would like to attend, that'd be great. Obviously, Crown Hill is trying to get their neighbors in, but it's kind of a slow slog at the moment. So I will send information about how you can sign up for that class. Seats are limited. The instructors can only take a certain number of students. So yeah, just keep it in mind. November 7th, there is a household prep and community response class at Holler Lake. This one's in person and online. I'm not sure how they're going to do that. I'm actually teaching this one for them, so that'll be interesting. There's a Hub 101 taught by Pat Mork in Broadview. It's at the Bitter Lake Community Center. That's November 12th. All the hub volunteers are welcome to come to that. This is a new one, November 13th, 7 o'clock in the evening. I'm going to do what I think might turn out to be kind of like a podcast. So it's open to everybody, but it's basically going to be me and Eric Autry, who is the emergency manager, one of the emergency management guys in Seattle Public Utilities. Eric and I are going to talk about saving water in a slightly different way than I've typically been teaching it. And I think I went over it with you guys before. This idea of if the water is running to your home, collect the water. And then as soon as the water stops running, turn it off, turn off the water shut off valve to your home so that gravity doesn't pull water out of your hot water tank. That collecting water while the water is running, that's a new thing. So that's what we're going to talk about here. But then Eric's going to go into lots more detail about where we get our water and how far it has to travel, and really interesting stuff. And Eric's lovely to listen to. I really enjoy him. So I'll give you information about that. November 21st is our next Hubcat meeting. And then December 3rd, Holler Lake is having a Hub 101. So Holler Lake is doing something November 7th and then December 3rd. They're trying to get their emergency communication hub back online. So I will send out information about all those.
And
Yes.
what is Hub 101? What does that involve?
Yeah, good question. It is only talking about the hubs. It is an explanation of the 7 major roles in the hub. So we concentrate on the 4 areas of the hub and the 7 roles. We don't talk much about radio, and we don't touch on medical or the reunification officer at all. We mention them, but we don't talk about them. So everybody stays seated, but the crowd should point to where the greeter would send this person to get their needs met. So it's kind of it's a drill, but you're all sitting down. And it's just getting people knowledgeable about the hub.
Okay.
Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I would think it's a good opportunity to bring people from an area where you're trying to implant the concept of hubs to sit in and just see what's going on then.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's very much a intro kind of thing. We'll go over the basics about a hub. It's, we stand up when there's no power, when there's no communications, all that kind of stuff. So yeah. What we'd like to see at the end of a Hub 101 class is you get people to commit to being a hub volunteer and go into a more serious training mode of really learning the roles. So less of a catch and release program than I think we've done in the past. I think we've done a lot of catch and release. We teach them and then we let them go, and we don't really seek a commitment from them. And I think that's a lost opportunity. So anyway, that's what Holler Lake is trying to do, is stop doing the catch and release. We want to get people to commit. Anything else? Right. I say we call it. That was a
Thank you.
50-minute meeting. That's pretty good. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye, good
All right.
night.
Bye,
Okay,
everybody.
good night.